our global partners EY are helping us kick off session 2, and to set the stage, we are pleased to feature Arpinder Singh, Global Markets and India Leader, Forensic and Integrity Services at EY, and Dinesh Mudgil, Partner, Forensic Integrity Services at EY.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be with you at Ethisphere's South Asia Ethics Summit. My name is Dinesh Mudgil. I'm a partner with the Forensic and Integrity Services practice at EY. With me, I have Arpinder Singh, who's a partner and Global Markets and India Leader at EY Forensic Practice. Arpinder?
Thank you, everyone. Great to be here as a part of the summit, and thanks to Ethisphere for inviting us. And I look forward to being a part of the session.
Okay, to dive straight in, we've all seen that the COVID-19 pandemic has forced organizations to work with an extended work from home or virtual working model. So Arpinder, how do you think that has impacted organizations in relation to compliance? Do you see organizations rethinking, prioritizing trainings now?
I think it's a great question, Dinesh. I think the pandemic has brought all sorts of changes in everybody's lives. I think if you look at compliance, there's been a lot of changes with the fact that there's so many emails which come electronically now compared to the manual way we used to do work prior to the COVID hitting us. That's brought a lot of new challenges to us, the way audits are done, the way governance is looked at, the way compliances are. I think if you look at the fact that there's been so many changes, for instance, in data security, cyber-related issues, there have been so many cyber-related thefts and data issues in the last 2 years that I've never seen before. I think the work we've done has increased by 3 or 4 times in this area of data security and cyber. Also, the change in processes has led to a lot of issues from as basic as the way financial transactions are done electronically with banks, which were earlier done manually. The oversight while approving vouchers is reduced. That brings a whole lot of new risks, which I think organizations have to embark on. So a lot of changes.
Given all these changes, we've all seen greater use of technology by organizations in the area of compliance. In fact, we've had many of the regulators also emphasizing the use of technology in relation to corporate compliance programs. So what are these some of the best practices you are seeing in relation to strengthening of compliance programs with the use of technology?
So I think the reality is technology has become a way of life. Whether it's training through virtual e-learnings or Teams type sessions or any online platform sessions, it's also a fact that if you look at all these automated workflows and tools and technology, everything has become electronic. And I think this work from home environment has accentuated the adoption of technology. So I think compliance automatically needs to pivot towards technology. I think it's become a requirement. It's no longer an option. If you look at the regulators around the world, whether it's the Department of Justice in the US or whether it's the Indian regulator, everyone talks about technology and the adoption of technology to improve compliances. I think if you look at today, look at the e-commerce world in India, the billions of transactions. You humanly cannot do things manually. Those days are over. Unless you use technology, you will not be able to address fraud risks in a timely manner. I think the reality is if you want to address fraud and catch them faster, everybody knows you cannot make fraud go to zero, but you can definitely catch them faster. You can prevent them from happening. So if you want real-time processing, real-time identification of fraud, I think there is no option but to adopt technology. I think there is a second aspect, which is around workflows and audit laws. A lot of times people say they've done something, they may not have done it. They sign certifications based on certain evidence which changes just magically. So I think having it all in a system with audit flows, I call it an electronic footprint, will help compliance and governance going forward.
Coming to the area of trainings, in your view, do organizations need to focus their training programs on compliance-related requirements alone? Or do you think there's also a need to focus on fraud risk and to develop a culture of transparency as an outcome?
I think trainings are extremely important and they've changed as per technology. If you look at the fact that training should be at the entity level with the code of business conduct, the values of the company showing the right tone, then it can go to different compliances, whether it's bribery and corruption, antitrust, fraud, cyber. These are all aspects of training which should be covered. I think one-dimensional training is not adequate, but still it should be strategic. It should come from the COBC, come from management showing down at the top, and then can go into tactical trainings as mentioned. I think with technology, all trainings have to pivot towards different things like gamifying training, for instance, make it more interactive, make it interesting, make it smaller microbytes as they call it, because attention, I believe the millennials and the all the new generations don't have patience for huge amount of training. So make it quick, efficient, smart, interactive, gamified as we put it. And I think it'll be much more useful. But I want to thank Ethisphere for calling us and inviting us for this session. Hope you all really enjoyed the summit. Thank you.
Ethics Training with Impact. How do you measure its effectiveness, especially in the virtual world? Moderated by Arpinder Singh, Global Markets and India Leader, Forensic and Integrity Services at EY. Arpinder is joined today by Anya Drew, Global Business Integrity Director at Diageo, Ishwar Tengavalu, Regional Integrity Officer for Asia Pacific at SNC-Lavalin, and Sandeep Seth, Director of Corporate Compliance for India at Pfizer. Arpinder, I invite you to kick off the conversation.
Thank you so much, and hello to everybody who's attending. Hope you enjoyed this session. The introduction was done, but I would like to, just add one thing. I think we're very lucky to have a combination of different industries. With Sandeep, we have the life science pharmaceutical industry. With Anya, we have the liquor or consumer goods industry. With Ishwar, we have SNC-Lavalin, which is a different industry. So I think we have different industries between us. We also have different geographies. Ishwar is based in Malaysia, we understand. Sandeep's in India. At least that's what he told me last time, though we have to trace that on a lighter note. But Anya is in Frankfurt, but based in London. So I think we've got different geographies, we've got different industries. So I think it's a great combination, which I think hopefully we learn, because we do understand training, which is the topic for the day, does vary by region. Cultural issues, languages, how people perceive it. Industries also, how do you disseminate training? Sometimes you have blue collar workers, white collar workers, as they define them. Every country defines them differently. But training has to vary based on all these aspects. But enough said. Enough I've said. I'd like to go jump right into the session. And my first question is to Sandeep. Sandeep, how do you view the need and impact of ethical training at various stages of employment? And the reason I ask that is people I've sometimes seen who treat it like a checklist. So would love to get your thoughts on this.
Thank you so much, and hello everyone in this session. So, first the mandatory question, Arpinder, my voice is clear. I hope everybody is able to hear that. When you talk about, is this fine, Arpinder?
Yeah, good.
It's perfect, Sandeep.
Okay, I go on. Arpinder, can you hear me? I think I could not hear. There is some problem here.
I think it's good.
Perfect. Okay. So when we're talking about training aspect, so one thing I just want to add is that generally we talk about training and slightly ignore communication. So that's the most important aspect. Should I carry on? I think I'm good to go.
Yes, absolutely, Sandeep. You're good to go. Everything is clear.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So what I was saying is, generally when we talk about training, we ignore the communication aspect. So it's very important that we take care of training and communication, both the elements together, right? So we have to use various modes, various forums, and we do not have to, restrict ourselves to only email type of communication, right? So the leadership communication, which really set the tone, that is very important. We have to use town halls, sales meetings, and various other forums. So communication becomes very, very important these days, particularly when we are having, diverse population, diverse geography, and within the organization also when we are doing it physically. Apart from that, when we talk about need of training, I would say two part is very important. One is that training for the policy and procedure throughout the stages of employment, because that keeps on changing. So at the time of onboarding, we'll do the one type of training, but throughout the life cycle of person when he is in the organization, the processes keep changing, the policies keep changing, environment keep changing. So this is very, very important that we keep on giving a regular training at various stages of employment. And the training on the mindset and culture, I would say, that is also very, very important. So when we talk about mindset and culture, if we do not having training focus on that, all our training is on the processes that will fail. That will not have that effect. Because if people are just taking the training and then doing tick the box, application in their processes, I think that that's the problem generally most of the organization are facing. Uh, and also, I also feel that when we talk about training and communication through policies, processes, uh, one more area now from Pfizer, and I've seen various other companies also, we are including in the training and communication is that uh, positioning compliance function, compliance as the activity. What is the importance of that? And how we can bring compliance as a part of the mainstream. This is very, very important. And generally, I've seen, we call it three myth buster. So when we say myth buster, when people say one, compliance is very boring, that's what is the overall perception is going on for a long period of time when we talk about compliance, when we are working on the compliance. Second is coming very complicated, how to make things simplify. And third thing is generally the acceptance is that we have to deal with that, that compliance is risk averse. So what we have done over a period of time, Pinder, is that we have worked in our training all these three elements, very important. Compliance is very interesting with the stories, with the case studies, with the various other options. If we learn compliance, if we enjoy compliance, it's very important and very interesting. It's very simple. And compliance talks about risk, accept risk, but it talks about overall, thoughtful risk taking, right? And this is what I would say. And how to, measure the impact. That is also very important. When we do a lot of training, how we can differently measure the impact. There are various ways to measure the impact of our training. We can do a lot of surveys. We can do a lot of risk indicators. We can see that how it is coming or going down, how queries are coming and going down. That's what I would say is very, very important. Continuously look at when we can say that our training is really, really effective. And that has to go throughout the life cycle.
Just one follow-up question, Sandeep, on that is, are on-the-job trainings also important? Because people do a lot of formal trainings, but is there some on-the-job training also which you think is relevant or important as a part of training? If you can just add to that.
Absolutely. So when we talk about training, generally we have different intervention of training. Person come for the employment, we train them, and then on annual basis there are certain type of training. But in between that, there could be different type of ways we can have on the job training. So in that can be done in various ways. Like what we do is we do have lot of case study sessions. So it's like a focus group kind of a training. We work on various live case studies. What is happening in the organization, where things need improvement, where things are going wrong, and how we can correct it. Right. That's where keeps on going on the job. And in on the job training, it's very important that we involve our colleague. It's not a one-way training that compliance function or one other function is giving to colleague. It's more of a kind of a TTT session that is regularly happening. So it's like our compliance champion giving training to our colleagues. So what happens is that when they see the role model on the job in every sales meeting, in every sales forum, in every type of different town halls, colleagues are coming forward, talking about their stories, talking about how they're facing challenges about compliance complication, how we are solving them. And that is very important when we are doing throughout the year. And that is kind of a different type of on the job training. And then Another method could be we involve them into various type of programs on the job. Suppose if we are doing a kind of a monitoring program from compliance function, we involve colleagues in that monitoring program, and that goes throughout the training, throughout the life cycle of the colleague, as long as they are doing their own job, and then by the in the evening or in the during Fridays, they involve with us and doing this type of session with our colleagues. So these are various methods. This is very important that we involve colleague throughout the year, and then we can reinforce those messages on the job.
No, thanks for that, Sandeep. I'd like to move now to Anya. So, Anya, in your opinion, do organizations conduct ethical trainings only with the objective of increasing their professional awareness? That means, I'm aware of the code of business conduct. And as rudimentary as what I'm saying is, when you're doing an investigation, you call somebody in, at least they say, I know the code of conduct. Or is it to actually help them in their individual growth and actually to make them work more efficiently and maintain a positive corporate culture? So actually more than just tick in the box, as Sandeep said, and knowledge, but a little bit more than that. Would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you, and welcome, and thank you very much for having me today here. Interesting question, Arpinder. I really, before I answer this question, let me give you a bit of context on the company itself. And I know that we already had a session from Diageo, so I don't need to introduce the company itself, but just the context around our culture is that we have in our company an ambition to be the most trusted and respected consumer goods company in the world. And that really is bringing a culture where we have a deep sense of purpose, on our values, and we bring a personal connection to our brands, our relationships with our customers, with our consumers, and the society in which we operate. The reason for that, why I'm mentioning this, is because this trust and respect element is already in our ambition. It's a conversation that we have in our organization, and the ethical training that I focus on and that I bring into the mix is based on exactly that objective, the trust and respect. And I think, if you look around us now, the bar, the expectation, the scrutiny that every organization is under is becoming higher. Being trusted and respected is more and more difficult these days. The global pandemic and the social crisis going on in many places across the globe really has emphasized the importance how companies need to behave coming out of this crisis, and consumers, and I'm speaking from a consumer good company perspective, consumers will be making decisions based on how the ethical standards have been applied and what the companies have demonstrated. And so when we weather these hard times, we really need to ensure that doing the right thing means much more than just compliance, based on rules, and training based on policies and codes. So in my view, ethical training is almost the foundation and a non-negotiable for any long-term success of an organization. I feel people want to have a purpose. They want to have pride in the organization. It's not just about profit and delivering performance. It's about what it means for me in my society to be trusted and respected. And so our ethical training really focuses on that. It's not just about my personal growth. It's about the overall ambition, overall respect that I bring to the society. And let me explain how it really means, what it means on the ground. So let me take data privacy. Previously we often have brought in messages around, data privacy is about, you need to ensure you understand the regulation, you need to understand the risk, you need to understand what fines we could be exposed to if we do not behave, if we do not manage that risk effectively. Our training has moved, or is moving now, more in the space of an opportunity. We have an opportunity here to build a reputation and being trusted by our consumers and by our customers that we collect and we maintain the data safely and we manage it transparently. So we're shifting it more to an business opportunity. And I think that's where ethical training really contributes to each and everyone to build that positive culture, to build that positive momentum in an organization.
No, thank you, Anya, for that. I think that's extremely critical because if people don't look at training in a positive manner, it just doesn't matter. You know how many times you do it. I think coming to Ishwar, a question to you: what are the challenges faced by leaders or senior management, around learning, development, and training programs? I mean, obviously, how do you set? Everybody talks about tone at the top, but how do you do it effectively? If you could comment on that.
Yep. Thank you, Arpinder, and hello, everyone. Uh, okay, tone at the top. So when we say tone at the top, usually it refers to leaders and the leadership style. So for me, leadership is a passion for an excellence, which is making the difference by setting the right example. So when I say it's a right example, I usually say the leader has to be turn one. Often we have challenges, of course. When we set the culture of tone at the top, definitely we will have challenges. So number one, I would say either the leaders are unable or overlooked to ensure that they complete the training modules on time. So when we assign the training to the leaders or to anyone in the organization, usually it comes with the bulk or it comes with the package. We have series of training, and of course, everything is mandatory based on the job profile. So when they tend to do this training, sometimes they might not aware that this training probably they have part one or part two or part A and part B to complete together. They might be thinking that they complete part A, part B they just left like incomplete. So they might be thinking that they have completed everything. End of the day, if it's not complete, then it's not complete. So they need to understand actually how the training works. And another one often we might have is like, of course, everyone in the organizations are busy. And like what Anya says, like training is everything. Of course, the compliance training is the foundation for everything. So we have to pay equal attention to those trainings. So I can't come and tell end of the day to people saying that I'm too busy with the work, so I don't have time to complete my training. But usually we will have this kind of reason. So what I would usually tell them is try to prioritize those trainings. How you're going to prioritize your day-to-day tasks. Of course, trainings are equally important, and we can't say no just because they are training, just because they are doing for internal people. That's the beginning for everything and everyone. So they have to do that. And then, of course, missing the training or the learning, it could potentially lead to a less knowledge. I won't say zero knowledge, I would say less knowledge about the company's policies and procedures. So when they tend to do anything, or they wanted to talk or they want to do anything about the procedures, they might not know the latest procedure because they didn't do the training. So this is where usually they will have issues with this one. The second one, I would say any unplanned unavailability during the training period. I know usually the people who are sitting in a leadership or the managers, they are also a member of external association. They could be like holding some president membership or treasurer or secretary or anything, and often they might need to do something for the association. So it could be an unplanned work, and maybe they will be getting the task on the last minute to do for this one, and it could be a draggy, or they could be busy with that one, be fully occupied with the task. So having this, it might drag their training time in the company because they might be thinking that they can do later, but since they're already occupied with other stuff, it might drag their time also. And the other one is also, I would say, this is actually less likely, but I can't say no. But probably the vacation, the unplanned vacations or any emergency leave. Of course, you can't control emergency leave, right? But we need to understand the fact that until the employee return to the company, if they didn't complete the training, it's just going to be sit there as an overdue. So if let's say you want to ensure that the leadership is achieved like 100% training, you might not going to achieve 100% because someone still haven't done the training despite they're on annual leave or emergency leave, whatever it is. They have to wait, and then until the employee comes back to the company, then only they have to complete the training. So this is also could be an issue. And the other one, which is very common, I would say, wait for the training's deadline or wait for last minute. If let's say we assign the training today and we say that, of course, the deadline is like 30 days from today or 60 days from today, they say, oh, it's okay. I have another 30 days. I have another 60 days to complete this training. So I can do this later. Why can't we just this can be an issue also. So why can't we just change the mindset as soon as they just the training get assigned? Why can't they just do in a couple of days time, or worst come worst, in a worst case scenario, probably like in a week time after they get assigned the training, so that they will have an ample of time actually to complete the training and of course any other BAU tasks that they have, because they might not know what are the issues or struggles they will have when they happen to do this training, the online modules. You know, the waiting for last time potentially can lead to an IT issue as well, unusual IT issue, because everybody hitting the system or everybody hitting the training platform at a time. So it can cause for a system congestion, and it also can cause for other issues. So that's why usually I'll encourage people to do the training on time despite the deadline. You know, it can be 30 days, it can be 60 days, but I'll usually ask them, as and when you have a time, just go and do the modules, because you have series of training. That's number one. And it just takes about maximum one training is like 30 to 45 minutes, the module actually. So it's not going to take much of your time. So as and when you have a slot, any free slot or anything that you think that you can complete your training, just complete at that point of time. It will be easier for us to look into any IT issue or system issue that they have. So these are the three main things that I can think of whenever we say that setting the tone from top to ensure the effectiveness of the training.
Thanks for that, Ishwar, because tone at the top is actually the most critical thing in trainings in my mind. So thanks for that. Sandeep, coming back to you, the world is changing, as I mentioned in the video up front. You have people with less attention, less patience to do 1 hour, 45-minute training. So is there a new change to these microbytes or small trainings or any add-on to the core ethical training? So how is it changing a little bit, the content, etc., if you would like to comment on that?
Yes, absolutely, Pinder. The world is changing, so compliance function also has to, get into that space. That is very, very important, particularly in terms of mode of training. So the mode of training is very important. We have to use technology, but I would say generally we have seen that the best way what we have experienced so far is using technology and offline both ways. It's a combination of both. So there are certain areas where technology really gives us the best result. There are certain areas we have to do offline training. So my response is not in terms of today's period. So we have to use technology only. But I'm saying is overall, basically we have to take best of both and make a combined approach. Because when we're talking about thoughtful risk taking, when we're talking about the case studies, when we're talking about the value and culture of organization, it becomes slightly different when we are off, when we are not face to face. So when we are talking about culture sessions, we generally prefer that we have face to face open door policies, and how we can build culture and collaboration in the organization. Apart from that, technology offline, I would say another area is very important is the creativity. So apart from technology and offline, we have to do something creative, which is very engaging, interesting, and time saving. In Pfizer, recently about a year or 2 years back, I think we started a new program with a mascot, which call it Captain Compliance. So Captain Compliance is basically a mascot. It's a brand ambassador for compliance in Pfizer India. And then Captain Compliance comes in different gray situation and gives you the solution. Okay. So it's a cartoon series. It's a various type of other series where Captain Compliance comes to you and give you solution on various gray areas. So it's a kind of different creative ways we create using technology, using offline. One more example I can give here is that particularly a lot of colleagues I could see, they want to see what is the way of finding the effectiveness of the training. It's very, very important. We are giving training throughout the year, how we can find it effective. Recently, we launched a program called Anytime Compliance Review. So what is this? Is called ACR. So what we do is we give one session or topic of the month. Suppose next month the topic is that sampling. So sampling is one of the area in pharmaceutical industries for the doctors. Sampling is one area. So now entire audience, all Pfizer colleagues has to do self-study on sampling process. They have to do themselves. And we have divided the entire organization in 7 zones, 7 regions. And after 1 month, we will do a surprise test of 10 colleagues in each zone. It's a dipstick check. So I will go to zone A and pick up 10 colleagues and ask this question on sampling. and then another region, another region, and then all regions are competing with each other. Okay, so what happened in these type of format? It's a very creative format. You have to be compliance ready anytime. So like do self study at home. It's so flexible. It gives you ownership also that I have to self study when I get time. It's a regular reinforcement. Every month there is a new topic, and it gives an impact assessment also. So I know in which zone, which are the colleagues, which are the region where sampling is not really understood well because region is going down in this area, and I can read. So I would say, like this, there are a lot of creative program we keep on thinking. So answering to your question, use technology, use offline, particularly for culture, use a lot of creative things. We can reach out to audience and have conversations.
No, thanks for that, Sandeep. Extremely stressful to know that you're constantly testing everybody. I mean, there's the thought of studying so much, but I think great points actually. Anya, moving to you, so 2, 3 questions, if I can bundle them as one. One of the questions which came through the panelists, what I thought you could cover also is how do you measure effectiveness of the training? In the sense, as Sandeep said, they measure effectiveness through these games, these competitions, compliance captain, as they put it. Nice name. And I think if there's similar sound bites in Diageo which you can pull from. Second, talk about the effectiveness of training and how you can measure it. And third is there a mixed approach of training in the sense of getting external speakers who are experts or internal speakers? How do you do it? So if you can, between these 3, answer to the best, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you very much, Arpinder. And I completely agree with Sandeep in terms of the creativity that's required in our thinking in terms of our approach to training. I'm going to answer your second question first around do we utilize a mix of external or external and internal subject matter or speakers, experts. So, I am constantly pressured to come up with some more innovative and creative ways to bring the message across. Every year, I have to top what I've done last year. And so it is a constant challenge, and I utilize external as well as internal speakers throughout my engagement plans and throughout my training. And the reason why I do that is to bring a different perspective into the training itself, but also to bring a bit of innovation and a little bit of a storytelling into the conversation. So let me tell you an example. In Africa, we wanted to bring our codes, our values, and our policies to life, and what it really means to us individually. So really bringing it into the hearts and minds of each and one of us. And we had a specific concern about people not feeling comfortable to speak up and utilizing our internal reporting systems or the whistleblowing line. So what we thought about, what can we do to create a bit more of a feeling that people can raise concerns and bring that to life. So we introduced, we actually invited Archbishop Tutu. And for those of you who might not know, but he was a freedom fighter during the South African apartheid regime. So we brought him in actually in front of the organization as a speaker, and he shared what he personally did to stand up against the regime, and just bringing to life, the bravery, the personal story about, I saw something that didn't feel right. I made it. I raised my voice against it. And so the other example where we used an external speaker was in Europe, where we brought in the Nick Leeson. I don't know if some of you might know the rogue trader, as it's been he's been labeled. He was the guy who was involved in the Barings Bank scandal. So we brought him in to bring to life the conversation around how performance pressures have really driven his story, and you're really bringing that to life, that it can happen to anyone in an organization. So really, the result of those 2 interventions have created a massive amount of conversation in the organization. There was lots of yammers and chats in our internal kind of communication channels around, oh, did you see this? Did you hear about that? And we started seeing a lot more conversations and what we call allegations being discussed internally. So this was really, and that leads me to the second question around how do I measure the effectiveness of my training? So we take the traditional approach to measuring completion stats. Absolutely, how many people completed our online training, first time round. We also measure first time pass rates. So where we do tests at the end of any of our training, we measure where do we see the first time pass rate being very low. So that gives an indication where we might need to follow up and bring a bit of a different awareness or different intervention into play. And then thirdly, we measure around feedback on the actual event, the feedback on the training through, you have the like button at the end of the training, or you receive feedback, when you have done conferences or integrity sessions, you can get feedback personally there. And then the last piece, I do monitor the effect of awareness through our breach allegations, where we see that we've had conversations on the specific policy issues, we tend to get an increase in terms of our reporting. So that's where I can see that actually this is working. It's not it's not necessarily bad to have allegations. It means people are talking about it, are raising aware, people are aware of certain issues.
Thanks for that, Anya. I think that's a great view. I love the Nick example. I would have loved to have been a part of that training to ask him why he did it. But great examples. Thank you so much. I'll come to Ishwar now. So Ishwar, I mean, people have been talking about technology a lot. So a little bit, in your opinion, how do you make sure you use technology, and if you can give some examples as a part of trainings, etc., to make them more effective? If you could, give some thoughts on that.
Yep, that's actually a very good question, because in virtual world, technology is the key. So by saying this, I would say that we have few options available when it says technology is there. So number one, like everyone nowadays have very adaptive Wi-Fi. So when we have the adaptive Wi-Fi, you can connect from anyone from any part of the world easily. So by having this Wi-Fi and this internet things and this one, we tend to introduce more e-learnings and more e-modules, in virtual world, because some of the session has to be conducted in a classroom manner. But of course, now we are working virtually, we can't do that. So we go back and we go one step back, and then we introduce more e-learning and e-modules to ensure that these people are having those e-modules, which is very much relevant to their work, their job profile that they have in the company, so that they can do the online session through that. And just in case upon the completion of the online session, if they think that they need more discussion or they need more assistance on that one, they can always contact their compliance or integrity officer at any time to get some assistance on that one. So that can be done as a number one idea. Number two, we have like a international platforms such as like a Trace, WorldCheck, and Dow Jones, things like that. So we make use of it. There's actually a resources library. So if you want to know anything about a client or what type of potential compliance risk that the client can bring onto the company or to the business, we can always go up there and we can have a check on this one. So this is actually available by online, so they can just make use of that one. The other one is the instant messaging facility, where they can always keep in touch with their integrity officer or with their manager or with their HR people or training people, actually, to guide them how to do the training, or to ask any question, or to guide them how to do the work, to ensure that all their work or all their tasks assigned to them, they are doing in a compliant manner. So that we have that facilities as well. And the other one, which is commonly happening now, is of course more audio or video calls. We have Teams, we have Zoom, we have Skype. People are connecting through that one, so that you can connect virtually with your colleagues, and to make sure that they already completed the task, they already completed the training, everything looks compliant, everything looks as how it's supposed to be, things like that. We will just try to have it as often as we can to follow up on this track. And I would say the close follow up or the close guidance that we have, I don't think so it will let anyone to fall apart in this training. And of course, the other option to cut down the unnecessary meetings and calls and this one. Nowadays, in some company, they also have like a project management platform, which is actually a software where they just introduce there, and then through the software, they just guide everything 100%. It's actually a virtual software, so they know what they are doing, what's the status and everything. And the manager or anyone wanted to check any of this procedure, they can just go there and check also. So this is another option available for that one. And of course, the last one, I would say, we also supposed to, it's an option actually, not a mandatory thing. I would say is that the company maybe can consider to have a digital assistant, something like, a chat box or a dedicated team to assist people actually when people have any sort of question pertaining to the compliance policies or procedure. They don't know actually where to go, who to get help, who to talk to, things like that. So they just can go back to the chat box to ask for assistance, or they can go back to the dedicated team to get assistance. Of course, they are not the subject matter expert, but they will be in a place where they can reroute them to the right place or to the right person, so that they will get the right assistance on time. So these are some of the technology assistance that we have currently in this pandemic time. I think this would be really helpful for those people who really wanted to make use of the technology at this point of time.
Okay. No, thanks for that, Ishwar. Really insightful, actually. But nevertheless, there were so many options. But coming to Sandeep, one question which came through in the panel is around third parties. So would love to know, do we have any responsibility to conduct trainings for third parties, vendors, contractors, consultants who are pretty much doing all the work for you? Sometimes you even have licensing agents and the actual people who actually interface with the government, which is our biggest risk here, right? All of us sitting here, those people never get trained actually. So are we training all the wrong people? Because the people who are actually going out there and interacting on our behalf with the government never get trained. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Arpinder, I think that's a great aspect of training. So if you see in the organization today, most of the organization, a lot of work is outsourced to third party, and that is very important also. So that organization can focus on various other important areas, and then we can use third parties, leverage their expertise also. And it is very important that those third parties are also trained and aligned on organization policies and way of doing the business. That is very, very important. And particularly when we talk about these third parties who are interacting with government. So what we do in Pfizer is that in third parties, we divide them in two parts when you say risk audience and lesser risk audience. So when you say risk audience, if there are licensing agents, there are people who are in the category of dealing with the travel agencies, there are category who are dealing with the healthcare professional, government officials. Those audience, we do the training directly, those third parties, directly by compliance function. We never outsource. And for those other third parties, we do the training differently. So we can use our online models, we can use various other ways, because it's a process level training. So this is the way we divide, and that happens constantly, regularly. So every year we define, okay, these are our 10, 20 risky third parties. We have to interact, on regular basis directly. And for them, I said both the policy training and the culture training. It's not only about the process; it's about the culture of the company. They have to follow that culture on the ground on our behalf. That's very, very important.
No, I agree with that, Sandeep. I think, unfortunately, when I do audits at least and investigations, the biggest issue I find is sometimes that training hasn't happened. And, the person has not been made aware of the policies he has to comply with. And if you come to India, you put an FCPA in the contract, it doesn't really matter to them because they have no clue what FCPA means. In fact, so, there's no point in putting something if the person has no clue about it. Coming to you, Anya, one of the questions which comes from the panelists is the whole pull and push process. How do you incentivize employees to attend trainings rather than threatening them that you'll penalize them financially or something? How do you incentivize so that there is actually a push to come rather than pulling them there? So, any thoughts on how to do that would be great for me.
Yeah, thanks. Good question. And it's someone that I constantly ask myself. So 3 points here. One is, we treat any kind of training program as a marketing campaign. So we are a consumer goods company. We're very good at marketing our brands. So I'm trying to adopt the same principle in terms of our training. We have a big campaign that is predating all of our training. We utilize various channels, which I was sharing earlier. We have Yammer chats, we have little podcasts, little videos to highlighting what are the sort of different risk areas and to raise awareness. And then obviously we have e-learning to bring that knowledge into the organization. So we treat it as a marketing campaign to create a bit of excitement and raise awareness. But secondly, we also look at, and this is really to address some of this fatigue that lots of people are talking about, training fatigue. We try to find places where we can put our messaging into various other channels. So, for example, we have as part of our employee onboarding process, when we bring in a new brand manager, there's a lot of marketing training, a lot of marketing awareness training that a new person comes through. We feed some of our compliance messaging into that. So it's not a standalone, here, this is what you need to know about all the policies. We look at the different areas and the functions where compliance could apply to in their role and try to bring those messages into those training or those engagement sessions. So they don't actually feel that they're learning purely on compliance. They understand how some of our expectations, some of our policies, and some of our rules apply into their own really relevant area. So that's the second piece around how do we manage the fatigue. It's trying to sort of hide some of the messaging in all the other all the other educational programs. And then thirdly, we utilize technology a lot more, and the pandemic has really made us stop and think: how do we reach our target audience? How do we reach the risky functions, the risky roles that where we need to target a bit more specifically? And here we have the benefit of being able to implement a tool that allows us to target our training based on role, based on location, and based on certain criteria that we define. And so that allows us to target, again, coming back to our marketing campaign, we can target our consumers, our customers more effectively with the right messaging. And so technology does play a big part in that. And we have, we're connecting our training. We have a training tool, a knowledge management tool that is connected to our HR system that allows us to do that. I mean, I'm conscious that not everyone has that luxury, but I do think there are lots of potential opportunities within the technology space to allow that targeted approach.
Thanks a lot, Anya, for that. I think that definitely makes sense. Ishwar, coming to you, one of the questions is, how do you ensure that you have the right audience attending? So one of the questions has come in is that, on a lighter note, people joke in India that the secretaries are the best trained people because they do so much training on behalf of the CEOs. They sit there on the computer and they're doing the training. So that's internal. And then externally, you have a third party who sends maybe the junior most person who's not making any decisions. You have no clue, right? You're not auditing. You're just making sure the third party is present. Who in the third party comes, you really have no idea. Any best practices? Now I'm coming more from an audit perspective to make sure that, you said you've done all the training, but is it really worth anything?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would like to recap like what Sandeep said earlier actually. So the third party usually will categorize based on the risk level. So we have like low risk, medium risk, and high risk. So those usually falls under high risk, has to complete certain portion of training. Usually when we give them approval for the third party, we call business partner. So when we give them the business partner approval, we give them a conditional approval. So this contract will be invalid, or this approval will be invalid upon the training completion. So number one, you can ensure they are completing the training from there. So that's the way actually how you ensure that the third party is completing the training. Once they complete the training, then the approval consider like it comes into force, and then you can start to prepare the training. That's number one. Number two, how you need to ensure that you are the right person attending to the training is you need to know actually what type of training you're assigned to them and who is going to conduct the training. If it is an online training, it's easy. anyone can assign the online training, and then the third party can do the online training. If it is going to be like virtual training like this, it's a face-to-face training, I would say we need to ensure that the integrity people or the compliance people is the right team or right department to give those training, because it's going to be like a subject matter discussion. And like what you say, Arpinder, is like we can't do this training on behalf of anyone. Only the subject matter expert can attend the training to ensure the effectiveness of the training. So we just need to make sure that the right person deliver the training. And of course, when from the audience point of view, the right person needs to attend the training, because end of the day, they are the one going to do the work for us. So we need to ensure that whatever work they are delivering to us is within our integrity expectation. And of course, they are obeying the company's policies and procedures at the end of the day.
No, thanks a lot, Ishwar. I think that makes sense because the company, third party, is signing the declaration at the end, so they are responsible that they've done the training. And if they've done something wrong, that's their problem to some extent. Because beyond a certain amount, you can't really do much. So one question, Sandeep, to you is last. So I'll just do one last round because I think we've exceeded our time. So Sandeep, any closing comments and any comments on how to make people open their videos so that these are actually people doing the training and not watching Netflix on the side on their cell phone? Sandeep, can you hear me?
Yeah, I would say that overall my last comment would be that I like that question also, the pull versus push. So most of the training we need to work a little bit more on how. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Please continue. We can hear you.
Yes, go on, Pinder. Your question.
No, I was just saying any last comments, Sandeep, from your end.
So there was some time lag in the connectivity, but I can. Okay, so I was just making last comment in the sense saying that so basically, yeah. Okay, so that I will say that overall we have to make all our efforts. So compliance training has to be more pull rather than push. So it has to be engaging, interesting, short, technology. So everything we need to be in the way to go. That's the way to go.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. Anya, last comments from your end?
My last comment is really, always think about the audience that you want to bring the message across, understand what their role is in the compliance training, and make sure the messaging is targeted at those particular role profiles, and bring to life, how the risk is being managed by them in their role, and make it personal and bring the story to life.
No, thank you. I like the thought of story to life. Ishwar, any last comments from your end as we close?
Actually, this pandemic period really taught us many ways to do how we can do our day-to-day tasks, and it teaches a lot of things. And we in compliance, of course, we are continuously improving the way we can conduct the training, the learning, and modules. And probably, you never know, in future it maybe can turn in a more fun way. In a more fun way, more excitement might be coming there. So just wanted to tell people that do not fed up or do not frustrated with those training, because all those trainings are there to help you all actually to understand the policies and procedures. Of course, the expectation of the company when it's come for integrity matters, and definitely you might find some interesting modules in the future, maybe as the company puts in more effort on that one, how to improve the training.
No, thank you, everybody. I think we've exceeded our time, and Kevin is pinging me. So thanks, everybody. Thank you all for attending, and really, I learned a lot. So thank you.